A small group of stowaways aboard a handful of transport shuttles. That was all they were. Though the liberation of Dak would be widely acknowledged as the success of the Mon Calamari and Quarren people, nobody could deny the role the galaxy's last Jedi played. Galen and his small force of clone troopers were directed by the leader of the Mon Calamari resistance, Gyle Akbar, into assaulting the floating city of Anchor Point, a rather sizable yet insignificant research station located above Dak's deepest deep-sea trench. The city's resistance cell had grown silent, which made the experienced commander nervous, especially if rumors surrounding the arrival of a mysterious Imperial intelligence branch were to be believed. After his transport touched down at Anchor Point Starport, Galen quickly realized something had happened to the Resistance upon meeting the Quarren Duquesne Nor, the husband of the Resistance leader Kelwyn Nor, the woman he was supposed to meet. In response to the rebellion's recent bouts of success, the ones Galen played a direct part in making a reality, the Empire had sent several specialists to weed out the dissidents on Dak. The ones sent to Anchor Point had been particularly efficient and savage. The city's spirit had been crushed, and the resistance wiped out. The only ones who still had any fight left within them were Duquesne Nor and his young 10-year-old daughter, Ziel Nor. Hiding away in the Nor family home, Galen came to understand he had to devise a plan that could salvage Anchor Point's almost unwinnable situation. 30 clones, a Jedi in training, a single Quarren and his daughter could not take an entire city by themselves. There was simply no chance. They had to inspire the populace. They had to do something to repair their shattered morale. But Galen didn't have any ideas, at least until Ziel snapped a picture of the frustrated Jedi, lost in thought. Wanting a diversion from his dilemma, Galen asks Ziel what she was doing, only for the young girl to explain her hobby of taking pictures and recording what she sees with the camera. Before the Clone Wars, Ziel's mother wanted to be a deep-sea photographer. She wanted to find and document a creature nobody on Dak had discovered. It was a dream that faded as Kelwyn felt obligated to stand with her people and join the Separatist cause. However, her passion remained and was passed on to her daughter. The conversation was simple, but it made Galen realize something. Every idea, every plan he came up with, didn't factor in Ziel because he dismissed the notion she could do much of anything in a fight. He hadn't realized she didn't have to fight. The people of Anchor Point needed to find the will to fight. Perhaps showing them the destruction of what made them lose said will would be enough to turn the tide. She wanted to do her part, finish what her mother started. How could Galen deny her that? Using Kelwyn's old equipment, Galen would have Ziel's camera wirelessly rigged to a projector, which would put his actions and the actions of the last Legion soldiers on full display to all in Anchor Point. Galen would kill the leader of the Empire's so-called specialists and rally the people of Anchor Point, or die trying. With no other alternatives, and a whole world up in arms and rebellion, the handful of dissidents would execute their plan the following morning. The force would be split into 4 groups. Group A would protect Ziel, as she recorded Galen's fight, and consist of Duquesne and 10 Legion troopers. Group B would consist of 5 two-man teams which would run around with and protect their respective projectors that showed the populace of Anchor Point Galen's fight. Group C would be the combat team of Legion troopers that tied up Imperials with hit-and-run strikes. Finally, Group D would be Galen himself, whose objective was clear: kill the one who broke the city's spirit, a short woman with pale, silver eyes named Hydra. Never being one for subtlety, Galen, regaled in robed Phase 2 clone armor, walks right up to Imperial Intelligence's base of operations with his lightsaber at the ready. Much to his surprise, however, his target was waiting for him with a team of 5 veiled individuals and a host of Imperial soldiers. "Seems you were expecting me," Galen shouts bluntly. "Well, you are the reason we're here. You know, it would have been far more effective to catch me by surprise instead of taking your time walking here," states Hydra with a tinge of condescension. "I wouldn't be too sure about that," the young Jedi says as he continues to move forward. "You are aware there's a division of stormtroopers between us, yes? You're either crazy or have a death wish. Otherwise, why else would you be approaching me? For a moment, Hydra's cool demeanor cracks. She knows Galen is up to something. I can't kill you without getting closer, replies Galen. As those words pass through Galen's lips, 4 Legion troopers hiding behind the corners of buildings fire rockets into the formation of stormtroopers, catching them by surprise. Provoked, Hydra and the 5 veiled figures remove their robes and charge their opponent with lightsabers drawn. The young Jedi returns the gesture in kind. As the crimson and blue blades clash, their sparks light up the dim streets of early dawn. Galen realizes his opponents aren't to be taken lightly. They aren't glorified grunts like the Shadow Guard. There's something far more dangerous. With an unexpected reverse grip thrust to the base of the skull, Galen is able to kill one of his opponents in the initial clash. However, in the process, he catches a glancing blow to the back that melts right through his armor. Inquisitorious, Galen says to himself as he parries an oncoming strike. Realizing he can't simply overpower his opponents, Galen channels the force outward around his body and repulses the Inquisitor's back in an impressive display of power. Upon regaining his bearings, the young Jedi spots an isolated Inquisitor and presses his advantage. With a quick sprint augmented by the Force, Galen closes the distance and engages his opponent with ferocity uncharacteristic of a Jedi. Having little time to react, the Inquisitor braces himself but slides backward after parrying one of Galen's mad strikes. Quickly, the Inquisitor raises one of his hands and pushes the mad Jedi back into the air with a strategic application of the Force. Fortunately for Galen, the Inquisitor's attention was solely focused upon his counter-attacking hand, and not on the one which gripped his weapon. In a desperate gamble, Galen throws his lightsaber at his opponent's saber arm, and bisects both his hand and weapon's hilt. With his opponent defenseless, Galen uses the Force to push himself down toward his opponent with one hand and reaches out to grab his lightsaber with the other. Before the Inquisitor can react, Galen closes the distance and rams the weapon's humming blue blade into his chest. As Galen fells another opponent, Legion Groups A, B, and C carry out their respective parts of the plan while engaging Imperials brave enough to contemplate getting in their leader's way. Though there was only 30 of them, the havoc they've been able to cause had thrown the occupiers into complete disarray. The soldiers projecting the battle onto nearby buildings to inspire Anchor Point's populace had found their objective serving a different purpose. Due to their constant moving, Group B had become the perfect decoy and distraction. Since they never stayed in one place, the Imperials couldn't figure out the Legion's actual strength and committed tremendous resources into something that was little more than a wild chase, instead of assaulting the more stationary targets with their full might. Though the plan was going better than expected, the populace still hadn't stirred. If they didn't rise up like Galen hoped, the Legion would be overrun once the Imperials mobilized to mount a proper defense. To make matters worse, a nearby atmospheric battle between several retrofitted Mon Calamari civilian vessels and a Star Destroyer had drifted toward the city. Though the battle was unrelated, it could quickly make the situation at Anchor Point more complicated if the rebel ships were defeated. Stopping to catch her breath, Hydra laughs and states, "So that's your ploy," while watching Zio's footage play out on a nearby building. "You'll have to do better than that." With a flick of her wrist, Hydra points in the direction of Zio and sends 2 Inquisitors her way. Galen attempts to intercept, but is stopped dead in his tracks as the strongest Inquisitor, barring the young Jedi's target, engages. "Curious," states the Inquisitor. "You're far too young to be a Jedi." Annoyed, Galen headbutts the Inquisitor through the gap of their engaged blades. This catches the Inquisitor by surprise as he stumbles back and wipes blood from his nose. "Funny," Galen says as he adopts a battle stance. "You talk a lot of crap for a Jedi hunter." "My time away from the Citadel is seldom rewarding, but something tells me you'll make this a very interesting trip," the Inquisitor declares while adopting his own stance. "A very interesting trip indeed." Confident his men can hold their own against the encroaching Inquisitors, Galen allows himself to feel the thrill that comes with the lead up to a duel while watching his opponent for any signs of weakness. "You have a name?" Galen asked. "Jorad," the Inquisitor responds. You used to be a Jedi, weren't you, Jorad? How can you tell? I've killed enough of them to know. With a single lunge, Galen closed the distance on Jorad and slashed at his opponent's legs. Prepared, Jorad jumped into the air and brought his lightsaber down toward the young Jedi's head. To Jorad's surprise, however, Galen shot out a bolt of lightning from his hands, resulting in the Inquisitor missing his attack in order to properly block. Pressing his advantage, Galen bent his arm inward toward his chest and thrust forward with all of his might, resulting in his lightsaber piercing Jorad's shoulder. The lightning was something the fallen Jedi didn't expect, and it cost him dearly. Unfortunately, before Galen could land the killing blow, Hydra stepped in, forcing the young Jedi onto the defensive. As the Inquisitors continued their duel with Galen, Duquesne and the troopers defending Ziel engaged their own Dark Force-wielding opponents. As a unit, the clones of the Last Legion focused fire on a single Inquisitor in a bid to bring her down. Though she was skilled, deflecting most of the troopers' shots back at them, she couldn't stop them all. Once a few got through her defenses, even more followed. She would finally drop dead only a few meters away from Ziel's position, her lightsaber rolling beside the young girl. The other Inquisitor, untouched from blaster fire, was a different story, as he descended upon the troops like a whirlwind of death. In mere moments, 3 of the clones had been cut in half, their armor offering little protection from lightsabers. To make matters worse, Imperial soldiers from across the city had begun to converge on the Last Legion. 2 of the projectors had gone silent, and the designated combat team was nowhere to be seen. The battle was turning against them, and Duquesne knew this. Ziel, Duquesne called out as he grabbed his daughter's face. My brave, brave little girl. You have to run and get as far away from here as possible. Ziel didn't respond. She knew what her father was about to do. She had seen her mother do it before. She understood what he had to do, and set her camera down. I love you, Dad, Ziel said softly as she embraced her father for the last time. Love you too, Shrimp. See you later, Ziel, Duquesne whispered, choking back tears. When the time is right. With the camera's lens directed at them, this fleeting moment between father and daughter became immortalized as it played out before the entire city of Anchor Point. Standing up, Duquesne unholstered his pistol and readied a grenade behind his back. The Inquisitor had torn the clones apart and was heading straight for Ziel. Duquesne only had one shot at bringing him down. For the sake of his daughter, he had to make it count. With the Inquisitor only a foot away, Duquesne dropped the primed grenade by his feet, readied another one, and fired off as many blaster rounds into his opponent as possible before getting impaled by a crimson lightsaber. Huh. The Corran snickered. Boom. With that last word uttered, the grenades went off, taking out both the Inquisitor and Duquesne. Across the battlefield, Galen heard Duquesne's explosion and felt the sadness washing over Ziel. There was something about her, something in the way she was feeling, that felt familiar. It was a strange experience which, for a moment, broke the young Jedi's concentration, resulting in Jorad cutting off a few fingers on Galen's right hand. Pressing the advantage, Hydra slashed Galen's chest, causing substantial damage, and readied herself to thrust her saber right into the young Jedi's heart. As this was going on, Jorad prepared to strike Galen's head in a bid to ensure that even if one Inquisitor missed the killing blow, the other wouldn't. Understanding that he was in a no-win situation, Galen quickly pivoted his body and allowed his right shoulder to take the brunt of Hydra's attack, while also turning his head, causing Jorad to pierce nothing but the flesh between his cheekbones and jaw. While trying to figure out what to do next, the young Jedi spotted something he could scarcely believe. Ziel, crying out in rage, was charging the 2 Inquisitors with her arms stretched out behind her. To Galen's utter disbelief, a lightsaber was flying through the air, tailing her. As the weapon's hilt finally made contact with her hand, Ziel had descended upon the Inquisitors and plunged her crimson blade into Jorad's back. This one action gave Galen the moment he needed to escape his dire situation. With Jorad distracted, Galen raised his blade and cut off the hilt of the fallen Jedi's lightsaber, deactivating it. He then followed this up with a slash along the waist that split the Inquisitor in 2. The constant setbacks of a fight she deemed to be simple had left Hydra enraged and her emotions exposed. She was going to kill Ziel, that much Galen knew for sure. With Jorad's corpse lying lifeless on the ground, the only thing that now stood between the young Quarren girl and the Inquisitor was a badly injured Jedi with an arm that was barely functional. Sensing Hydra's growing irrationality, Galen did the only thing he could think of. He sacrificed his arm. Galen placed his left hand on Ziel's shirt and gripped it tightly before mustering what strength he had left to jump as high as possible. With Hydra's lightsaber still in his shoulder, the jump caused substantial damage as it split the young Jedi's arm in two before finally popping out near the hand. Once in the air, Galen used his feet to push in front of him with the Force, allowing him to get distance from Hydra. "I can't fight her and protect you," Galen states to Ziel after landing in a courtyard. "You need to find a place to hide." Ziel gave no argument and nodded, tears still streaming down her face. Taking one good look at his arm, Galen realized the extent of the damage he had taken. Though it was still attached, the arm had become little more than two pieces of flapping flesh. Without any fuss, the young Jedi activated his lightsaber and cut it off at the shoulder. Though the situation was desperate, Galen began to feel something which wasn't coming from him or Ziel, something which was emanating from the city itself. Though Hydra was approaching, the young Jedi allowed himself to calm down and focus on his surroundings. He quickly realized he was feeling the people of Anchor Points growing. Fire. All across the city, Quarren and Mon Calamari alike had begun attacking Imperial soldiers with whatever they could get their hands on. They fought with a fanaticism and a zeal that the young Jedi found all too familiar. When did this happen? Galen asked himself. What action sparked them to stand up? As Hydra drew closer, so too did the battle between the Star Destroyer and Mon Calamari civilian vessels. Only a handful of rebel ships remained. Was it me? The Legion? Duquesne or Ziel? Galen asked. Who am I kidding? It wasn't any one individual that led to this, but all of us. Even those who passed on well before their time, like Ziel's parents. "Who do you think you are?" screamed Hydra from the other end of the courtyard. "And you, Father," Galen finished while readying for combat. "I am the Grand Inquisitor of the Inquisitorius. Only the Emperor and Lord Vader himself are above me in power. Yet somehow, you believe a one-armed child, thinking himself a Jedi, could defeat me." Hydra activates her lightsaber and points it at Galen. "How arrogant." Vader, the Emperor. They told you who I am, but not what I was. Interesting, Galen states amused. If you and I were alone from the outset, you wouldn't have stood a chance. The thing is though, Galen stops and deactivates his lightsaber while raising his remaining arm. From the rubble and ruins of the Legion's battle emerges an ever-growing tide of armed Anchor Point citizens. "I'm no longer alone," Galen declares as his arm drops to his side. Turning back towards Ziel, Galen asks, "Does anything live in that undersea trench?" Ziel shakes her head. "No, only animals." "Well then, they better get out of the way," Galen says as he lifts his arm into the sky towards the Star Destroyer. "Should be easier than last time. Nothing's shooting at me." Realizing how hopeless the situation had become with the ever-growing horde of civilians surrounding her, Hydra looks up at Galen and laughs. "Do you truly believe you can rip that massive warship out of the sky? Pathetic. You're delusional and insane," Hydra taunts. "I'm a Jedi. Size means nothing," Galen barks back. In the sky high above Anchor Point, the Star Destroyer begins to move towards the planet's surface as the young Jedi struggles to maintain consciousness. Walking over to Galen's right side, Ziel raises her hands into the sky. Amused, the young Jedi looks down at her and smirks. "What you're about to see is the power of the Force. A power that resides in everything, be it living or dead," explains Galen. "A power I sense in you." "Can you teach me how to use it?" asks Ziel. "I still don't understand it myself, and I'd probably be an awful teacher, but..." Galen stops and looks back up at the Star Destroyer. "I'm willing to give it a shot. Consider this your first lesson." To the amazement of Anchor Point citizens and the utter horror of Hydra, the Star Destroyer high up in the sky began to descend, with its nose pointed directly at the deep blue oceans of Dak. As Galen strained himself, however, the speed at which the vessel fell slowed. The damage the young Jedi sustained during his fight with the Inquisitors had taken its toll. He was on the verge of passing out. A good effort, truly, but mid-taunt, Hydra stops and grows quiet. One by one, the citizens of Anchor Point raise their hands into the sky towards the Star Destroyer, like ZL. Though many believe it nothing more than a symbolic gesture of support, a message that they stood with Galen, whether or not he actually brought down the Imperial warship, the reality was far different. Perhaps by letting go of his hate, or trusting in the Force, Galen could feel something echo across the whole city. It wasn't something tangible, a power which could be wielded, but something impactful nonetheless. "Do you feel that?" asked ZL. "It's like I could feel everyone. Everything." "It's the people of Anchor Point," states Galen. "It's their love and their anger, their hope and their sorrow. It's like a warm glow. Is this what the Force is?" "I think so. Yeah, at least a part of it." Galen digs in his heels and reaches out one more time. "If that erupting, burning fire of life doesn't give you the strength to give it everything I've got, if I don't have the will to carry on till my death, if I can't do what so many have done before me, then how can I call myself a Jedi?" Once more, Galen takes hold of the Star Destroyer, and with a conviction he's never known before, crashes it into the deep-sea trench, destroying it under the growing pressure of Dak's water. Though the feat was incredible, it came at a cost, as Galen collapsed from all the strain and fell unconscious. In the days following the battle for Anchor Point, the once divided Mon Calamari and Corran peoples came together to rid their home of those who would see them in chains. Though it came at a great cost, with sacrifices both big and small covering the planet, Dak was free. The Empire was gone. There was no celebration in the wake of this victory, however, for everyone knew it was only one small step in a conflict which would consume countless lives. Though their understanding about the coming storm was realistic, it was not wholly without hope. Galen's battle, the sacrifices of Duquesne and the Last Legion, ZL's outburst, and the destruction of the Star Destroyer had all been captured on tape. Once uploaded to the HoloNet and other alternatives employed by the Rebellion, the footage spread across the galaxy like a wildfire, despite the Empire's attempts at censoring it. The heroic tale of sacrifice of the galaxy's last Jedi resonated with far too many people still suffering under the heel of Imperial rule. News of this victory, and the legend developing around him, wouldn't reach Galen for some time, as his still unconscious body recovered aboard the Resolute's medbay. When he finally came to, however, he was greeted by a familiar, though unfriendly face. "About time you woke up, boy," Coda scoffed, standing above Galen with his arms crossed. "Coda," Galen said, trying to prop himself up. "What happened? Did we win?" Coda nodded and pointed at a nearby view screen. "You did a lot more than simply win," he explained. "We even captured Grand Inquisitor Hydra." Galen's eyes widened as he watched the footage of his battle play out during an Alliance News Network broadcast. "The galaxy's last Jedi," Galen said while reading the broadcast's header. "What's this all about, General?" "The Rebellion needed a symbolic victory, some sort of symbol that the people of the galaxy could rally behind," Coda stated as he placed his hand upon Galen's new robotic arm. "Seems that symbol is you." "But I'm clearly not the last Jedi. You're proof of that," countered Galen. "You are as far as the galaxy is concerned." Coda tightened his grip around Galen's robotic shoulder. "Who knows? Maybe your sacrifice will inspire those still in hiding to fight." There was a frustration in the old general's voice, though Galen knew it wasn't directed at him. "General, while pulling down the Star Destroyer, I felt something I never experienced before." As Galen spoke, Coda's grip eased. "I could feel the emotions of everyone at Anchor Point, but it was more than that. I don't know how to explain it. Wish I had an answer for you, boy, but I don't," said Coda as he let go of Galen. "I've spent most of my life fighting. Though the Force is my ally, I don't understand it as well as I should." Stepping back, Koda undoes the curtains beside Galen's bed, revealing a sleeping Ziel. As a Jedi, you still have a lot to learn, but you are a Jedi, and I've taught you all I can, declared Koda while fixing the young Quarren's covers. This girl, on the other hand, she's a different story. She has a lot to teach you, and you, her. Before walking out of the room, Koda turns back to Galen. I recall that a handful of Jedi used to believe in the living force. Perhaps that was what the two of you felt. With those words uttered, the Wizened General left his former pupil with his newfound student.